£1,500. That's what a Toyota that'll still be running in 10 years' time costs in this country right now, and hardly anybody's buying them? Not because they're bad, because they're boring, because they're the wrong shape, or the wrong badge on the wrong driveway, or they've got a minicab reputation stuck to them like tar. So here's the one thing to hold on to for the whole video, and it decides everything else. A car gets cheap two ways. It wears out, or it goes out of fashion. Only one of those two costs you money. Every motor on this list is the second kind. Chain-driven engines, no wet belt, no clever downsized turbo with a 5-figure bill hiding inside it. Cars that taxi firms ran to 200,000 miles and then sold on for scrap money. And we're doing this one properly, so the road tax goes in next to every single price. Because one car on this list is £1,500 to buy and £360 a year to tax. And another one is a taxi with a battery in it that costs £20 a year. Same country, same road, same government. Stay with me, because number one is the one everybody's been told to be frightened of, and that fear is worth about £4,000 to you. I'm Terry Halloran, and this is Vintage Vehicles. No manufacturer pays us a penny, no press cars, and we don't sell cars. Everything here comes from published data, and we'll tell you which is which. Do me a favor before we start. Hit subscribe. It's free and it costs you nothing, and this is the sort of thing that stops a mate signing for something daft on a Saturday morning. Right? Where this lot comes from. Belt or chain is checked per engine code, not per model, because they're not the same thing, and getting that wrong is exactly how you end up buying the one with the bill in it. CO2 figures are Toyota GB's own press material, which is what the DVLA banded these cars on. Tax rates are the gov.uk tables for this tax year. Known faults come from Toyota's own technical bulletins, independent Toyota specialists, and owner reports on Honest John. And here's what we haven't got, because you deserve to know the gaps. There's no published figure in this country for how long a used car sits on a forecourt. Anyone quoting you days of stock on a British used motor has made it up. And we can't tell you what your specific car will do. We can tell you what the design does and why it does it. After that, you can judge it yourself. Number 5. The Toyota Yaris, second generation, 2006 to 2011. Everybody reckons they know this car. Little runabout. Driving instructor's motor. And that's precisely why it's here, because the reputation has done nothing to the mechanicals and everything to the price. $1,500 to $2,500 for a tidy one with the servicing written down. Honest bit first. It's small. Motorway work in a 1.0 is hard graft. The boot takes a shopping bag and a coat, and it fidgets on a broken road. If you're doing 200 miles a week up a motorway, this isn't your car, and there's no point me pretending otherwise. Now the engine, because this is the bit that matters. The 1.0 is a 3-cylinder, the one KR-FE, and it's chain-driven. Not a belt. There's no 4-figure cam bolt job waiting for you at 80,000 miles, because there's no cam bolt. Same story with the 1.33 that came in later. Chain, both of them. But a chain isn't magic, and here's the mechanism. A chain runs in the oil. That's the entire design, and it's why it should outlast a belt. The oil is the tensioner, the lubricant, and the cushion, all at once. Let that oil go thin, old or low, and the chain starts slapping the plastic guides. The guides where the tensioner runs out of travel, and you get a rattle for a second or two on the first cold start of the day. That rattle isn't the chain being rubbish. That's the chain telling you the oil's been neglected. On a little engine like this, oil changes basically are the maintenance schedule. That's it. That's the job. Money, And this is where it gets sharp. The later Yaris 1.0 is 118 grams of CO2, which is band C, 35 quid a year. The earlier ones creep over 120 and drop straight into band D at 170. A couple of grams of CO2, 135 quid a year, every year, for as long as you own it. Check the V5C before you check the paint. Verdict: the cheapest way into a car that wants nothing but oil and tyres. Nobody wants it. Nothing's worn out. That's the rule first time. Number 4, the Toyota Auris, first generation, 2007 to 2012. This is the invisible one. Toyota retired the Corolla name in this country and put this in its place, and the badge never landed. It's a Corolla underneath with a different word on the boot lid, and because the word means nothing, the car's worth nothing. 1,200 to 2.5. A Golf of the same year and the same mileage is roughly double. Honest bit. The interior's grim. Hard grey plastic and a dashboard designed by somebody having a bad week, and it's dull to drive. Properly, genuinely dull. If that bothers you, walk away now and save yourself the trouble. The engines. The 1.33 dual VE VTI chain, the 1.6 chain. But the 1.6 Valvematic is where you want to pay attention. So here's what Valvematic actually is. Normal variable valve timing changes when the inlet valves open. Valvematic changes how far they open. That lets the engine breathe with the throttle nearly wide open all the time, so it stops wasting effort sucking against a shut flap. Clever. And it genuinely works. The catch is that it's a motor and a linkage sat on top of the cylinder head, and it isn't the sort of part anybody rebuilds. When the actuator gives up, it's a unit, and it isn't a cheap unit. Symptom is a rough idle, a light on the dash, and a car that's suddenly gutless. It's not a common failure, it is an expensive one. So the 1.33 is the buy if you want simple. The 1.6 is the buy if you want it to pull up a hill with 4 people in it. Money. The 1.33 is 135 grams, band E, £200 a year. The 1.6 Valvematic from 2009 is 153 grams, band G, 275. And the earlier 1.6 dual V VTI, 2007 to 2009, is 166 grams, which is band H, 325. Same badge, same shape, same shopping run, 125 quid a year apart. Verdict: the cheapest properly modern Toyota in Britain, and it's cheap because of a name change. Nobody wants it. Nothing's worn out. That's the rule again. Quick favour before the top 3. If this is any use to you, give the like button a tap. Takes a second, costs you nothing, and it shoves this in front of somebody who's about to sign for the wrong motor this weekend. Cheers. Number 3. The Toyota Corolla Verso, 2004 to 2009. 7 seats, a flat floor, doors that open wide enough to get a walking frame in without a wrestling match, and a seat height that puts you at hip level instead of making you climb up or drop down into it. Then the whole segment died, everyone went off to buy an SUV, and the price fell through the floor. A tidy one is £1,000 to £2,000. There is nothing else on the road doing that job for that money. Now the honest bit, and this one costs me, because the version most people will recommend to you is the one to run from. The 2.2 D4D. That's the 2AD engine, and the problem is documented. Here's the mechanism, because you want to understand it rather than just hear the word unreliable. Carbon deposits build up on the pistons. As they build, They change how the combustion chamber behaves. The engine starts using oil, and the burning oil makes more deposits. It feeds itself. Combustion temperatures climb. The aluminium head and the block expand against each other, and eventually the gasket gives up. Toyota published out-of-warranty guidelines on exactly this. Oil consumption worse than half a litre every 600 miles, and overheating and head gasket failure caused by carbon deposits on the pistons. Those guidelines covered cars up to 7 years old or 111,000 miles. These cars are 20 years old now. There's nobody left to ask. The symptom is coolant disappearing with no puddle under the car and the expansion tank pushing itself empty on a long run. If a seller tells you it just uses a drop of water, that isn't a quirk. That's the fault, and you're being had. So buy the petrol. The 1.8 VVTi is the one ZZ'd. It's a chain, and it's the same lump that went round the world in 1,000,000 Corollas. Money, and brace yourself. That 1.8 petrol is 184 grams of CO2. Band 1. £360 a year on a car that costs $1,500. 3 years of tax comes to more than the car did. If that number kills it for you, the later Verso from 2009 with the 1.8 Valve-matic is 162 grams. Band G, 275. And it's the better car anyway. It's just dearer to buy in the first place. Verdict: the best cheap people carrier in Britain, provided it's got a petrol engine in it and you've read the tax figure twice. Cheap because the fashion moved to SUVs, not because it wore out. That's the rule. Number 2. The Toyota Avensis Tourer, 2009 to 2018, the 1.8 Valve-matic petrol. This is the minicab car and everybody knows it, and that reputation is the best thing that's ever happened to its price. Nobody wants to pull up at a wedding in one, so a 2012 estate with a full history and 100,000 miles on it is 2 to 3 grand, and the same money buys you a rival with a wet belt in the sump and a twin-clutch gearbox that's got its own dedicated internet forum full of frightened owners. Honest bit, it's about as exciting as a filing cabinet. The steering tells you nothing, the interior's grey, and the badge does absolutely nothing for you. It's transport. That's the whole pitch. Mechanism, and there are 2 things here. The 1.8 Valve-matic, the 2ZR-FAE, is chain-driven, no turbo, and it spends its working life doing airport runs. The Valve-matic unit is the same story as number 4, so I won't repeat it. The one people get wrong is the gearbox. If it says multi-drive S on the boot, that's a CVT, a belt running between 2 cones that change diameter. There are no gears in there at all. It works by clamping that belt with hydraulic pressure, which means the fluid isn't just lubricating it, the fluid is doing the gripping. Let that fluid cook in stop-start traffic, and the clamping goes off. The belt slips a fraction of a millimetre, and it polishes the faces of the cones. Once that's happened, you're not repairing anything, you're buying a gearbox. Toyota's normal schedule has that fluid down as inspect, not replace. Independent specialists will tell you to change it anyway on a car that lives in traffic. Couple of £100. That's the difference between a car worth 3 grand and a car worth scrap. Or buy the manual and never think about it again. Money: 152 to 157 grams depending on the gearbox. Band G, 275 a year. And the diesel? The early 2.0 D4D is the AD family, same carbon story as number 3, and on top of that it's a diesel old enough that the emission zones are now the bigger problem. Put the registration into the TfL checker before you go anywhere near one, and don't take a seller's word for what's exempt. Verdict: the most car per pound in Britain, and the reason is a job title. Cheap because of what it reminds people of, Nothing's worn out. That's the rule. Right? Top 1. If you've stuck with me this far, do me a favor and subscribe before I get to it, because number 1 is the one nobody sees coming, and it's the one the whole country's been quietly talked out of. Number 1. The Toyota Prius, 3rd generation, 2009 to 2015. I can hear you already. Battery. Right, let's do the battery, because the fear around it is worth about $4,000 to you, and almost nobody explains how the thing actually works. The pack is nickel metal hydride, and it's cooled by a little fan that pulls cabin air through a duct behind the back seat. That's the whole cooling system. Now fill that duct with dust, crumbs and dog hair, which is what happens over 15 years, and the airflow drops. One end of the pack starts running hotter than the other, the cells drift apart, the computer watches the weakest module in the string, and one day it throws the light. So an awful lot of what gets called a dead hybrid battery is a blocked air filter and a fan nobody's touched since the car was new. It's behind a plastic panel by the rear seat. It's a vacuum cleaner job. And here's something worth knowing before anybody sells you a horror story. Toyota GB will extend the hybrid battery cover with an annual hybrid health check at a Toyota dealer, renewing a year at a time up to the 15th year from first registration. Now the honest limit on that, and you won't hear this from a seller, a 2010 car is already past it. A 2014 or 2015 car has got a bit of runway left. Check the actual registration date and check whether the previous owner kept the checks going, because a broken run of them is a broken run. The real weak point isn't the battery, it's the head gasket. The 1.8 petrol engine in these, the 2ZR-FXE, has a well-documented head gasket problem, generally showing up somewhere between 130 and 200,000 miles. The widely cited mechanism is the exhaust gas recirculation route clogging with carbon, which makes combustion temperatures uneven across the cylinders and puts hot spots on the gasket until it lets go. Let me hit the brakes on that though, because a channel that only gives you the scary half isn't worth your time. Some specialist Prius workshops publicly dispute that link. They say they see plenty of failed gaskets on cars whose EGR system was perfectly clean, and that if the carbon were the cause, they'd see clogging on everyone. So treat the carbon story as the leading explanation, not a settled one. What isn't in dispute is the symptom, and that's what you actually need at a viewing. Cold start from properly cold. If the engine shakes hard for 10 or 15 seconds and then smooths out, walk. Check the coolant level, then check whether there's a stain anywhere. Coolant going down with no leak underneath is the tell. Head gasket on this engine is a 4-figure job. Getting the EGR circuit stripped and cleaned is a few hundred, and it's the cheapest insurance on the car either way. Money, and this is where the whole video lands. 89 grams of CO2, Band A, £20 a year. It used to be naught until the free band was scrapped, and 20 quid is now the floor for everything. So, the car with the scariest reputation on this list is the cheapest one to keep on the road. Minicab firms ran these to 200,000 and 300,000 miles on brakes that barely wear, because the electric motor does most of the slowing down for you. 2 to 4 grand buys a good one. Check the plate on the TfL checker like everything else. Never assume it's clear. Verdict: the most misunderstood cheap car in Britain, and the misunderstanding is the discount. Cheap because people are frightened of it, not because it wore out. That's the rule. Hardest version. Quick run back through. 5, the Yaris Mark II. Chain driven, needs oil and nothing else, and 35 quid a year if you buy the right one. 4, the Auris Mark I. A Corolla with the wrong name on it, priced accordingly. 3, the Corolla Verso. 7 seats for £1,000, petrol only, and read the tax figure twice. 2. The Avensis Tourer, the most car per pound in the country, and change the CVT fluid. 1. The Prius Mark III. 20 quid a year, a battery that's usually just dirty, and a head gasket you check for in 15 seconds on a cold start. Here's the takeaway, and it's not a comfortable one. Purchase price is the smallest number in this decision. There's a £1,500 car on this list that costs $360 a year to tax, and a £3,000 car that costs $20. Over 5 years, that gap is £1,700, more than the cheap one cost in the first place. So do these two things before you go and look at anything. 30 seconds on the gov.uk vehicle inquiry page with the registration, which gives you the tax band, and 30 seconds on the TfL checker, or your own council's, for the emission zone. Never take a seller's word on either. Never assume a car's exempt because it's a Toyota, or because it's a hybrid, or because it looks clean. And the limit of this video, said plainly, none of these are quick cars, none of them are handsome, and not one of them will make you feel anything at all when you shut the door. If that's what you're buying a car for, this list is no use to you, and I'd rather tell you now. Now, I want specifics in the comments, not opinions. If you've run any of these, tell me which one, how many miles it's on now, and what it's cost you in the last 12 months. Actual numbers. That's the stuff that's genuinely useful to the next person reading. And if I've got something wrong, say so and say where. That gets fixed in the next one rather than argued about. There's a card up on screen now with another one of these. Have a look, it's worth your time. Buy with your head, not the badge. This video is based on publicly available recall notices, MOT test data, safety ratings, reliability surveys, and independent review evidence current at time of publication. Individual vehicle outcomes vary. Some models may have had subsequent updates, recalls, or improvements. Always obtain current information and independent advice before making any purchase decision.